Hello everyone. In this tutorial we will remake a tree like we find them in the source folder. So if you start by File, Open, and you go to your the form folder for the second week, and then you go into Example. There you can find the example where you have some 2D assets. I will zoom in with the zoom tool, so the shortcut is set, and we will make the tree that is here, this one, and also this one. So we will remake them. So the first thing that I will do is I will make a folder. So I click here right on the bottom on create a new group. That's a folder, and I will give this folder the name source. You can also give a folder a color. So here I will give it a red color, so that I easily see that it's the source and that I don't want to change the source. The background layer is different than another layer, so I'm going to change the background layer in a normal layer just by double clicking on it. So I double click on it, I can give it the name, I give it also the name source, and now I'm going to drag this layer into the folder. So now I drag it onto the folder, and because the color is changing, I see that it is into the folder. I make a new layer on top of it, new layer, and I'm going to make a selection with my rectangle marquee tool. So I take my rectangle marquee tool here in the options toolbar, I'm drawing around this first tree, and then I'm copying. So shortcut Ctrl C. Oh, Photoshop says could not complete the copy because the selected area is empty. It's because I'm not on the right layer, so I have to be on my source layer, and then I say Ctrl C, Ctrl V. Now I have this little tree, and I'm going to make it bigger. So I do that by transform. I can go to Edit, Transform, Scale, or I can use the shortcut Ctrl T. So I'm using the shortcut Ctrl T. I'm holding my Shift so that I scale in proportion. That's the first tree that we are going to make. So this layer 2 is my tree, so I'm changing the name in tree by double clicking on it. And then here layer 1 is a new layer I made. I will call that white. And here now with my rectangle marquee tool I will make a selection and I will fill it with white. How can I fill easily something with white? Here you see I have my foreground color and my background color. I can change it. Now it's my foreground color is white, my background color is black. Also if it are other colors, for example if my foreground color is red and my background color is green and I want them to be black and white, I can just click here or shortcut D and I have black and white. Now filling with foreground color, shortcut Alt Delete or Control Delete. So Alt Delete is foreground color, Control Delete is background color. This white layer doesn't have to be on top, so I'm dragging it underneath the tree. So that's the preparation that I have done. And now here next to this tree we will redraw the tree. So I make a new folder. I call this folder tree 1. Right mouse click. I change the color into green and I make a new layer. So we have different ways that we can make a shape in Photoshop. Here on top I have the rectangle marquee tool, the elliptical marquee tool, and also this Polygon Lasso tools. I can use that, for example, I'm going to show you, to draw here a triangle, and then I can fill it with the foreground color. So we saw already that shortcut, just I'm selecting with my eyedropping tool the green color, and then I can fill it with clicking Alt Delete. But if I do that, here I'm working with pixels. So like you can see, I'm working pixelated. In this exercise, that's not what we want to do. So I delete the layer. I make a new layer. So, like I said already, you have here on top the rectangle tool, the elliptical marquee tool, the lasso tool that you can use. But now we will work here on the bottom with the rectangle tool, the rounded rectangle tool, the ellipse tool, the polygon tool, because here we are using a vector. And a vector, you can scale it without losing resolution. So I choose for the polygon tool because I want to make a triangle. And I'm going to double click. If I double click, I get a menu. And in that menu, I can say, okay, I want the width of the triangle to be 100 pixels. I want the height of it to be 500 pixels. I want a triangle, so 3 sides, and smooth corners. I'm clicking OK. Voila. And like you can see now, here in this icon, it's a vector. You can also see it by clicking here on the direct selection tool. And if I click with the direct selection tool, I see here that I have 3 anchor points that I can also change if I want. But first of all, I'm going to start with transforming. So shortcut Ctrl T. I'm holding my shift and I'm turning it 90 degrees. And then I'm transforming it a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. So, and that's the form that I want of my tree. But here I'm working with paths. Also very important, if I draw, I forgot to mention that, if I choose here to work with a shape, it's important that the selection here is on shape, not on path or not on pixels. If I put, for example, I'm going to make a new layer so that it's clear for everyone. If I put it on path, and I will just draw a little ellipse, and I draw an ellipse, you will see that the layer here, it's not a vector layer. Why not? Because my selection here on top is on path, and then I'm drawing a path. So I have here the working path. I can also save that, so I can say, okay, that's 3-1. And then here on the bottom, I can choose, okay, give me the selection of that working path, and I can also fill it. But now we are not working with paths, so I will delete this one. We are working with these layers. But very important, the moment that you draw your triangle, here it has to be on shape. Then you have the shape. If you have this shape and you go to the direct selection tool, and you click on this layer, you see here that you have these 3 anchor points. You can change this anchor point. For example, I can click on one and I can put it a little bit more on the left, a little bit more on the right, so I can change the way that my triangle is looking. You also have the history panel where I can go back step by step the things that I have done. Another thing that you can do is, if you go here to the pen tool, you have the convert point tool. With the convert point tool, I can click on an anchor point, I can drag, and then I have these Bezier handles that I can use to change the form. If I press Alt, I can just change one handle. If I don't click Alt, I change both of the handles. I can also go back to history panel, because that's the form that I will be using for now. The next thing, so here I will call it background tree, a new layer. Here you see the top of the tree. These are 3 green ellipses. So I go to my ellipse tool. Very important here that it is on shape, and I will draw a small ellipse. I want to give it a green color, so I take my eyedropping tool. I'm selecting the green, and then I'm pressing Alt Delete, filling with the foreground color. I'm taking the move tool, bring it in place, and then with Ctrl T, deforming it. Then a little bit bigger, yes, something like that. That's 1. So ellipse 1. I'm copying him. ellipse tool, Ctrl T, and then the third one, so copy, the next thing is here we see there are two yellow green, so maybe the background, the back tree can be a little bit darker. So I'm clicking here on the back tree layer. I'm using my eyedropping tool to select that color. I see now here in top in colors that's that color. I will take a little bit darker, so I take it here. That's now my foreground color, and I say Alt Delete, fill with the foreground color. I make now a new layer. I draw another ellipse, a little bit bigger, take my eyedropping tool, selecting for the color, filling with the foreground color. It has to be a little bit lower, so I'm changing the layers, like that. Something like that, a little bit smaller, Ctrl T, shortcut you should know by now. Copying this layer, transforming it, replacing it. We're almost there. The last thing we have, this one can go a little bit lower, something like that. The last thing we have to do is make this trunk. So I make a new layer, call it trunk. And here we will use the pen tool. So I have the pen tool here. I will first take the color that I want. So I'm clicking with my eyedropping tool. So I have the color here. It can be a little bit darker. So I take that brown. And now if I take the pen tool, also important, it has to be on shape. So not on pad. It has to be shape. And now I'm just tracing this tree just by clicking. So I'm adding anchor points and just following the form of this tree, this trunk. Almost there. So we made, we'll just save it. So we made this tree. What did we learn? We learned to work here with the different kind of rectangle, rounded, ellipse tool, polygon tool, but with vectors. So now you know the difference between working with a vector. You can see it here on this layer that you have the vector icon, not with the pad. We learned to use the pen tool and made some simple forms, but in that way easily, like you see here on the bottom, you can easily make some 2D game assets and then combine one with each other to have nice 2D game assets. That's it so far. Bye. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In this video we will make a second tree where we learn how to make with forms in Photoshop. We will also look into the pen tool and the difference between a path and a vector. So we start by opening. If you go to your folder that you download on Lego for the second week, and you go to examples, then you have a file where there are some 2D assets. You can open this one and make a new folder by clicking here on the bottom up a new group, new folder. I call it source. It's important if you work with layers and groups that you make it structured. So for that here I will place this folder in red. The background layer, I double click on it, so it's a normal layer. I paste it into this folder. That's the source. So now I will zoom in. And now we will make this tree here. So I will copy him. So I take my rectangle Marquee tool, drawing a selection, using my shortcuts, Ctrl C, Ctrl V. I make a new folder on top of it. I call this one tree 2 because I made already another tutorial where we made this first tree. I copy this layer. I know it can stay into the source folder, this one. Tree 2. I will make it a little bit bigger, so shortcut Ctrl T. I'm holding shift and I'm dragging. And then I will remove the other trees that are in the back. So I make a new layer on top of the source layer. Give this one the name source. White. Yes, I close this one. Now I make a new layer here. I will give this folder the green color. And now we will start. I zoom in a little bit. Now we will start with making this tree. Like you can see, it exists of the tree the same forms. So we will just make one form and then we can copy it. The form is a little bit a rectangle. So I go here to my rectangle tool. Very important that here it is on shape. If it is on shape and I draw my rectangle, I will see that I have a layer where there is a vector. So I'm working with vectors. So if I make my image bigger or smaller, I will not lose quality. So I'm taking my eyedropping tool, selecting, so it's the foreground color, filling with the foreground color, shortcut Alt Delete. I will show if here you use your rectangle tool, but it is on path, and you draw a path, then you will see that there is no layer. Why is there no layer? Because you drew a path, and a path is coming here, not in the layer selections, but in the paths, so working paths. And then also there you have some options to take the selection, and you can work with that, but we will not be working with that for the moment. So I delete this one. We go back to layers, where I drew my rectangle. Now I'm going to change this rectangle so it has more the form of a circle, a little bit like the Flintstones form. And we will do that by going here on the bottom, clicking on the direct selection tool. And with the direct selection tool I see the 4 anchor points. Now I go to the pen tool. I can take my convert point tool here, and by clicking and dragging I change this anchor points and this Bezier handles that are on side of it, and I can give it the form a little bit like we see here. But here it's a little bit more a trapezium, so on the bottom it's a little bit smaller. So I go back, take my direct selection tool, I click on one anchor point, and I can just make that a little bit smaller on the inside, on both sides. So that's my first form, green. It can be that light green, so I take my eyedropping tool, clicking on light green as a foreground color, Alt Delete. I'm filling it with the foreground color. I'm copying this layer now, a new one, a little bit lower, eyedropping tool, taking the darker green, filling with the foreground color, Alt Delete. can be a little bit smaller, something like that. So I have this light green, a little bit darker. So I change the name here just in rectangle 2. I'm copying it again, and I'm changing the name in rectangle 3. A little bit lower, and with my eyedropping tool, selecting the light green, filling with foreground color, shortcut Ctrl T, and I can deform it, make it a little bit smaller, so it will be something like that. But like you can see, we have 1, 2, 3 little circles here, so we have to change that. How will we do that? Well, we take our direct selection tool. We see that we have 4 anchor points. I will add some extra anchor points here on the bottom so that we can make this other form. How do we do that? If you go to pen tool, you have here add anchor points tool. So I will be starting with adding 1, 2, 3 more anchor points, and then I will see if I need more of them or not. With the direction tool, so first one I have this one, then here this one goes up, that will be the first, so the second, so I need 2 more, so I go to my anchor points and I add 2 more anchor points. Up, this one down, this one up, and this one down. Now I'm taking my converter point tool and I'm dragging at this anchor point. Then I press Alt so I can take one, that I can change one Bezier handle. If I don't press Alt, I change both Bezier handles, like you can see. If I press Alt, I'm just controlling one of them. So something like that. A little bit smaller, a bit smaller. Okay. Now let's have a look. Okay, that's my tree. So I have here one tree. And now I will just be copying. It can be a little bit smaller. So I'm going on my folder. I say Ctrl T, and here now, if I transform everything that is inside my folder. I will copy this folder. Voila. And now it's very important, because I'm on my folder here, I can change it, and the 3 layers are following. If that's not happening, that's because here the auto select is on. If your auto select is on and you're selecting a layer, because auto select is on, he will only change the layer at the moment that you're activating. So if that's your problem that you're having, it's important that you look that if you, so I redo it to be clear, you have your layer, you copy your layer, because auto select is on. If I want to change all these layers that are inside this folder, that doesn't work. He's only taking one layer. So auto select has to be off, and now if I click on a folder, I change the place of the folder. So that's 1. I copy him again, so that's 3. I know I'm transforming a little bit the form, because the one in the back is a little bit smaller. Something like that. And then the last thing we have to do is we have to draw this trunk. So I make a new folder. I call it trunk. Make a new layer in it. Call it also trunk. Give it the color yellow. In this exercise here, we are just working with not a lot of layers, but it's important that you learn to work with folders and structures, so that it is easy if you want to move a part a little bit, that you know, okay, it's in that folder and I can move it. So for the trunk, we are going to use the pen tool. This first with my eyedropping tool, I'm selecting the color, something brown, can be a little bit darker, so I'm going to take the selection here. I'm going to zoom in, and just with my pen tool, taking my pen tool, important here that it is on shape, not on pads or on pixels, and now I will just be tracing the trunk. So just placing anchor points. And then for closing, important that a little dot is there. If little dot is not there, it will not be closed. Voilà. And trunk. And placing it over here. Something like that. Can transform it also, make it a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. You get the idea. Voilà. And then we do the same for the trunk here on top, so make a new layer, the pen tool, just tracing the image, zooming a little bit out. And we made our second tree. So like you see here, in this tree we have 3 times the same form. So if I want now, I can make variations on that tree. I can make a tree with 5 of these balls. I can make a small tree, I can make a big tree. Also you see here on the bottom, the example with the assets also, with the rocks. They were making 1 pair of rocks, and then you can reuse it, you can copy it, and in that way in Photoshop you can very easily make some 2D assets.